Beloved. It's definitely been 2 weeks since I posted my last video, and I was trying to post a lot sooner, but unfortunately, with everything going on in society today, and then on top of that, I got sick, which was nothing nice. I don't think I did have coronavirus. I didn't go get checked, but the way I felt, I've never felt something so intense. I started with a drippy nose and then sore throat, which led to congestion, chest pain. I don't know if it was chest pain, but my lungs felt like they were on fire, like they stung. And then I had stinging sensation from my chest, like my lung area, and through my shoulder blades, in my arms, and in the back, which then triggered anxiety. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of freaking out because I did not want to have the coronavirus. I was scared. I have my little ones. Um, so, on top of being sick and having anxiety is nothing nice. It's definitely a lot easier said than done. And so, I had to plug into prayer a lot harder and just put my worship music on. I did a lot of TBN and Hillsong and just kind of focusing and asking God to really redirect my thoughts and my looks on Him. Give me a perspective through this all and help me through it. And He did. He really did. He always does. But anywho, as soon as I started to feel better, I pulled a muscle in my back. So I'm here relaxing in my room on my bed, just chillaxing and just taking one day at a time. I'm doing a lot better. Um, I still have a little bit. I don't have anxiety, but like last night I woke up with like a little cough, and I think it was just, you know, a little bit of me still getting through what I went through with me being sick, and then I was up at like 1 o'clock with a little bit of anxiety trying to creep in, and my mind started to try to race and take off, and I had to pump the brakes and just pray and through my journey of what I went through with harm OCD, fear, and anxiety, I've actually, with God's grace and mercy, have um, learned how to refocus and just there's just different ways I've learned to settle my mind down. Does it always work? No. Can I always control what pops into my mind? No. And I think that's what's more frustrating is when people were like, well, just don't think that way, or wh- why don't you just get over it? Well, it's not that easy. It's just not something that you wake up and say, you know what, today I'm going to be positive all day, or today I'm not going to feel fear, because it doesn't work like that. But we'll discuss more of that as time comes along. But where I left off was I gave you a little rundown of my Albuquerque, New Mexico life experience growing up in Albuquerque with my mom, and just kind of gave you a little bit about my mom because she plays a big role in who I am today, and through that, a couple of people have. But so in 2000, when my mom told me that she was moving to Arizona, I was upset. I was very upset with her because of the fact, like, you are going to take me out of my comfort zone. I liked the lifestyle of partying, and it was my norm. I didn't know anything else. So when she said we're going to move to make a change, I was pretty mad about that. Yeah, I really was. Um, I think it was the very first time I've ever disrespected my mom, and but what could I do? Um, but like I said, I think I mentioned in the last video, we ended up um, before we left, I was hungover, got drunk, we went to go eat, did not want to eat. I was just mad, angry, and hungover, wanted to be left alone. The whole ride to Phoenix, Arizona was a miserable drive. I tried to escape at one of the rest stops, but I was a kid. Like, where was I going to go? Right? Where in the heck was I going to go? In the middle of nowhere from Phoenix to Arizona. If anybody has done that drive, it's not like you have options, you have fields. But I look back at that, and sometimes I gotta laugh because it's those moments that we look back at our younger days and our foolishness, and we're like, really, like, what were you thinking, right? But anyways, my grandpa helped my mom get a three-bedroom trailer here in Tempe, Arizona. It was a nice trailer park. It was a newly trailer park there, and pools, grass area, playground. All the trailers were really double wides, beautiful. Nothing that I've ever kind of seen. I know that sounds crazy, but where I'm from, the trailer parks I'm from look like they came from the hood of your own hometown, probably. So you guys could probably know what I'm relating to. But we get there and we settle in and whatnot. My grandpa helped my mom transition tremendously, helped her financially, helped her look out here, just help because he lived here, so he knew the ins and outs of everything. So it was a big help to help us transition this move. In the meantime, I was really bitter about it, but I accepted it. Um, my mom seemed to be doing good. My dad seemed to be doing all right, but it didn't stop him from doing what his normal life. You know, no matter where you move, you can always find whatever you're looking for. You know, if you're gonna go looking for it, you're gonna find it. So, but my mom started working. I started to meet people, friends, and I started to kind of get to know everybody. It was definitely a different culture shock, and I'm not racist, but where I'm from, a lot of where it was 95% Hispanics, not too many whites or blacks back then. So moving out here, there was majority of the, Caucasians, if you want to say whites, um, and some blacks, not too much Hispanics or Mexicans then. Um, so, I mean, now in 2020, it's pretty equal. I mean, you got all kinds of different types of races and it's a beautiful thing. But when I moved here, it was a majority, I felt like, and maybe it was just me being young. We see things differently, but me being young, I felt like the majority was whites, um, which wasn't a bad thing, but it was just different for me. So when I moved here, um, that's where I met my husband in the trailer park we were in. He was freshly new from South Phoenix. He moved there with his family to try to get away from all the hood and everything. And I met his mom, and everything was going good. I mean, I started to meet people. Did not stop me from wanting to go back home, though, but everything seemed good again. As time went on, though, my mom was working a lot of hours, and my dad found his type of crowd of people. Fortunately, one of them was my husband at the time, my friend, because we were friends then. It was his dad. So he would get together and sometimes he would disappear. He wouldn't come home, or I'd be at home watching the kids while he'd be out and about, and my mom was working. At this time, my mom was doing better. We all came in with, hey, this is going to work out. We're all going to have a fresh start, new stomping grounds. We don't know anybody, nobody knows us. But unfortunately, it didn't work that way. Dad met people that did a lot of drugs. Mom worked. I ended up getting stuck taking care of the kids. As time went on, though, I don't know. Um, Mom started to slowly but surely fall apart again, but worse, I want to say. My grandpa was always over, and I didn't know what I knew now, but little by little, um, back then, my grandpa helped my mom a lot, but he would hold it against her. And this is what she's told me. And so like, yeah, he helped her purchase and transition here, but he would be like, well, if you don't do this or do that, there was always a price to him helping. There was always an interest rate. And at one point, I believe he even tried paying my dad off to leave back to Albuquerque and leave my mom and the kids there. It got so bad where my mom ended up losing her job, or should I say, she quit her job because she worked as an RN or a CNA. But the place that she worked at was being really, really like, mm, I want to say, scandalous. I really don't know a professional word for that, but she just didn't appreciate the way that the patients were being treated there. My mom has heart, so regardless of her struggles, she loved being a CNA. She loved her patients. Like she would go and take money out of her own pocket just to go buy like little perfumes or little nail polishes, just to go shaving kits, just to go do amazing things with her patients. But You know, not everybody walks into these facilities with that same mindset. Some people work in their job field of choice with just a paycheck, and other people work in with heart. Unfortunately, the people that would clock in before or after her, she didn't like the way that her patients, when she would walk in, was being treated, so she quit. But in the meantime, it gave her more to focus in the time of her focusing in her home, seeing that my dad was out doing drugs. Me and my husband, at the time, we were getting to know each other. Me and my husband were good friends for quite a while. In the process of all of that, we ended up um, dating and hooking up, and he helped me a lot in a lot of areas of my mom when she would have her moments of her mental breakdowns. I don't even know if I want to call mental breakdowns, but her moments of anxiety or trying to look for my dad or fighting with my dad. It came down to, I'm not gonna lie, I started selling drugs and with my husband because of the fact that I felt like, you know, before my mom quit her job, I'll back it up a little bit. When she was working a lot of hours, my dad was getting high a lot with at the time, it was his friend, but now it is my father-in-law. But it was my husband's dad. They would go in the room and get high, and I would be out there with me and my husband. And we figured, well, hey, you know what? This is the life that we know. We might as well start selling, because of the fact that we would rather have the money stay in the household so we could all eat, other than going somewhere else. Um, I look back at that and I regret a lot of what I've done. But growing up, you don't have the best guidance, you don't make the best choices and decisions, and you are in survivor mode. So, our very first customers, which we call them customers, were our parents. But my mom knew that we were selling drugs. My dad was, running in and out, having tweakers in and out of the house. In 2000, that was when a lot of coca and a lot of that kind of subsided, and it was more like methamphetamine started to come from California, and that was starting to get introduced into America. So we pretty much were just, my what my mom meant for good, we were kind of destroying behind the scenes, and I didn't realize that. I was trying to help her maintain the household, but it was just all bad. And so again, she quit her job, and that's when it did, like I said, give her more focus inside the home. And she would fight with my dad. She was trying to do right. She was trying to mend her relationship with her dad. She was trying to, take care of us kids. Um, Shortly after, about as a year went in, I ended up pregnant with my first son at 16. It was just horrific. Grandpa came in and started to slowly but surely take control. I ended up um, eventually moving out. I don't even know why. I think actually my mom kicked me out because I think she was still trying to maintain, like, hey, I came out here for a fresh start, and if you can't get it together, then you need to move. Um, so I think we moved, taking in what she was saying in all the wrong ways, and I got mad and moved. But in my mind, I was like, I need to live, I need to survive, I need to make money. Like, this is all that I know. I don't have any help. You're working, taking care of the kids, where you were working, and now you're home. Like, things just really went downhill. Eventually, me and my husband were living from his house um, to friends, and that wouldn't work out. My mother-in-law, she is a very vicious woman with her words. She's very verbally abusive, and she's very hurtful. And so, staying with her was no different from living with my mom and dad. My father-in-law at the time and my mother-in-law, they would get high off crack cocaine all the time, and then she would be all fine and dandy, and each person to their own high. She wouldn't be the one looking out the windows as much as my father-in-law. She was more like the uppity up, like, different. It's different. It's hard to explain. I guess you wouldn't understand unless you grew up in that type of environment. Um, Drugs are all drugs, but everybody gets high off of them differently, no matter what they are. Um, so she was nice when she was high, but the moment she would sober up, she would attack my father-in-law and make it seem like, and be hypocritical about it and make it seem like he did it all, like he spent all the money, like she was innocent. And because she was coming down off of her high, she would attack us and say some mean things. So we just didn't want to stay there. My husband couldn't take it. I wasn't gonna bring my son into that environment. So we went on to family and friends. Um, at some point, he was working. We found ourselves in hotels, living in our cars. It's just the same old vicious cycle. Nothing ever changed. My mom, I tried to reach out to my mom, but in between, let me pause for a minute. In between all of that, when we left um, Albuquerque, my grandma and my mom are close, like I mentioned in the beginning. But somewhere in between my mom leaving, I don't know what happened. I don't. My grandma had a nervous breakdown and never was the same. She went into when I left, my grandma was my grandma. But when I saw her a year after we moved to Arizona, she wasn't the same. She was bound by fear. She was paralyzed. She wouldn't get up off the bed. She didn't go to the restroom on her own. She didn't make herself nothing to eat. She would literally curl up in bed and not move. So, um, my mom, in the beginning when we moved here, I'm back up again. We went out there to pick her up before all hell broke loose, and my mom decided to step in and take care of my grandma. I remember my mom telling my grandma, "What are you afraid of?" Her name's Barbara. "What are you afraid of, Barbara? What are you afraid of, Mom? What's going on? How do you not know?" But then, and my grandma would just say, I don't know." And we'd all ask her, like, "What's going on? What's wrong?" And she'd say, I don't know. And we never could figure out. We just knew she was afraid. If she took showers, panic attacks would kick in, she'd pass out. Like, we just don't know what really happened. Um, to this day, she's like that. And she doesn't have the panic attacks or anxieties, but she's still bedridden. Not because she can't, but because she won't. And, um, but anywho, so as time went on, fast forwarding to where I left off, my mom and my grandma lived together. My mom would try to take care of my grandma, but unfortunately, my mom um, fell pretty deep into her own darkness, but worse, to the point where family stepped in and had to help her um, take care of the kids. My dad wasn't no help. My grandpa was always coming over, and I want to say, like, for the first few years after I had my son, it's kind of a blank to me because I really wasn't around my mom when I would reach out. She wasn't doing good, but I remember my mom telling me, like, a lot of those times that she wasn't doing good. She'd be frozen in fear. I'd find out that, she checked herself into a mental health, anxiety, never could have, just I felt like moving out here was supposed to be beneficial, but it really wasn't. I was 14, and unfortunately, out of five of us, I was the only one that truly got to know my mom, who she was before she fell into the drugs really bad, the depression, before my grandpa jumped in and took control of her life. Um, and my brothers and sisters never got to really know who she was. And it hurts my heart to know that they will never know who she was. And I feel like when we moved up here, I don't want to sit here again and make my grandpa feel or seem like he is a worse person. But his choices, decisions, and actions were not the best. He moved my mom out here for the best. I know my dad did not do that great. As much as my mom was fighting to make life better, everything and all the odds were up against her. You got my dad over here doing crack cocaine. She's trying to work and provide. She got her 13-year-old daughter taking care of the house. You got her dad up over here, and So for me, I left and ran and picked up my own son, and I was doing my own place of running the streets and trying to provide. Yes, at that time, my husband did work, but working at Fry's or um, Food City out here in Arizona was not going to pay our bills. Um, so that's where we continued to sell drugs and to make a living for us the best that we could. Eventually, as time went on, my grandpa stepped in and ripped me from my brothers and sisters. He started to be a shot caller. A lot of the family's members would bow down to him because he would come off like, well, if you don't do or do what say, or what I say goes, or I'm going to help you, but because I helped you, you owe me, or because I rented or helped you put down money on this house, I'm going to pop in when I pop in. And if you don't do it this certain way, I'm going to call CPS. Or he was really good with electronics. So he always had some type of advice watching, or it was kind of creepy. Um, but there was a lot of times where I've had to step in and see my mom again. At this point, like, my mom was full blown suicidal after she just totally lost it. She was suicidal. Um, and I took care of my mama. I would step in and I would make sure she got the right help she needed. I would bandage up her wrist. If I felt like I had to intercede and call 911 or get her petitioned, I would. And I never understood, like, and I would tell my dad, like, why wouldn't you, why are you allowing some other man to come on your stomping grounds and take over, be the shot caller, and do all of this? It got to the point where my grandpa left his wife to move my mom and my two sisters in, and my dad. But at this point, quite a few years have passed. At this point, though, I started to realize as I got older, because I would literally get so mad at my mom and be like, why would you let this guy just come in and start controlling and shutting you down? And it got to the point where I realized that my grandpa wasn't the man that he intended to try to be. Yeah, he would help you, but it was at a cost. Yeah, he's helping my mom, but what cost? For me, I believe that a lot of drugs, when you can step in and control somebody's finances and call the shot caller and tell them what and how to live. um, and I'm not gonna lie, my own personal thought is I've seen and know that my grandpa is feeding my mom and dad dope just so he can have a control on their life, to the point where he even tried to say my husband wasn't walking around the girls because my husband was inappropriate, because one day we were barbecuing and my husband took a piece of meat, a piece of chicken off the fork, and gave it to my sister. My sister bit the fork. Like when you take a piece of meat and you're like, here, try this, but it's hot. So they just kind of bite it out of your hand. Well, that's what she did. And he came back like, oh, it was inappropriate. I didn't like that. Like, made my husband feel like he was trying to come on to my little sister, which, we're quite a few years apart. So it would have made him a child molester? No, I don't think so. But eventually, um, we um, we found ourselves living with my mom. I'm just trying to like skip a lot of what has happened, and I'm just trying to like hit the big notes, because I'd be here for days giving you my life story. But we ended up getting, my grandpa bought a house with my mom on it in Casa Grande. It was a trailer, nice. um, but I felt like he moved her out there with the intentions of, yeah, he bought her house, but it also isolated my mama more. And so my mom felt so powerless that at this point, as a few years went by, my mom was just a full blown meth addict with my dad, and my grandpa would just be a shot caller. He would go pay the bills, take over the money. I mean, there was times where, I would find myself staying over there with my mom, and my mom's sneaking around at night eating. And I'm like, what are you doing, mom? She's like, shh, you don't want to get up, we don't want to upset your grandpa. Or the stories she would tell me, or the things I started to catch on. And it affected me growing up. It affected me not to have my mom there. It affected me to see who the person she was and the little bit of struggle she had to go into, it manifested tremendously more than what I could ever imagine. Like, I thought my grandpa brought us out here to help us. Maybe so, but at what cost? Like, at what cost did he bring us out here? He made things worse. Um, he he really did, and I hate to say that. And I'm sorry, Grandpa, if you're watching this, but this is how I feel. This is just my story. And at this point, he done separated me and my brothers and sisters. I was selling drugs on the street. My dad let some other guy step in. My mom didn't know what to do. She felt defeated, and for me, I didn't have a mom to call or a dad. I didn't have a mom to call when I needed some advice on how to raise my first son at 16. I didn't have my dad there to teach me, how men can be if you don't carry yourself as a young woman, or what kind of men to watch out for, what kind of signs to be careful, or just parents. I didn't have parents. I was raised on the streets since I was 16. So, I remember there was times where I felt lonely and abandoned and betrayed, and I was a very mature young girl, and I felt like a lot of street smarts I was never book smarts, but street smarts I was. But in between all that, that's where a lot of little fears started to creep in. Like I said in the beginning, I'm not sure if I mentioned it because I can't remember, but I could accidentally burn myself or cut myself, and I would instantly go into a anxiety attack. My big thing I struggle with today is taking ibuprofen or pills or anything antibiotics. I don't like to take them. It gives me anxiety. Don't know why. Till this day. Um, put these out like 2 hours ago. They're just Tylenol for my back, and I will sit here and debate for like 2 hours just to take them. But I will. But that's my struggle. And it sucks because of the life that I've lived. It has developed little habits of fears and anxieties and worries. And I was always able, with God's grace, to make it through. You know, I was the very first one to step in and realize what really was going on with my mom. 4 years ago, when I found out um, a lot of what she went through as a child, um, I was able to expose it and fight for her. I was able to get a restraining order against my grandpa. God was allowing me to stand up and warfare this out, like the only God in this family is God and not you. And I was the one to help my brothers and sisters, on top of allowing other family members to step in and help me. But even though I sacrificed and struggled a lot, it was a blessing to be able to do those things for my family or even myself, on top of having a really amazing husband. Yes, he also has his struggles because his mom, was very verbally abusive. He never had a woman to love him or comfort him. And I think that's where we balanced each other out. I was able to love on him and hug him, which was not something he was used to. And he was able to come in and show me boundaries. Like, don't let people walk all over you. Don't let them talk to you like that. He was more aggressive and I was more gentle, and that's where we balanced each other. But it definitely brought a challenge in our life. It definitely brought rejection. We raised ourselves. We really raised ourselves and was parents. How can you be something that you were never taught? So, hear my little ones back there. Hear them. I don't know if they're singing, YouTubing, or fighting. It's one of them three. It's okay. They're not pounding on the door. They'll be all right. But so it's just kind of give you a little story. Eventually we did quit selling drugs. My husband got a full-time job. Um, Back then, he was in RGM for KFC. I stood home and took care of the kids. By the time I was 21, I had 2 kids. Between I was 25, I already popped out 3. I was 28. I done already had 5 kids. So little by little, we grew. But it was back in 2008 when my husband lost his job and we ended up back in New Mexico. Um, And that's where I found my salvation with God. And that's where I started to grow with God with my stepmom. My stepmom plays a big part in my life because through it all, she was there. And in 2008, I feel like our relationship took off tremendously with blessings and prosperity with God's mercy and grace because we grew um, even stronger. I felt like she started to get to know God. We started going to church. Um, my husband went back to school to be a CDL, to get his CDL as semi driver. Um, we moved, we moved to Albuquerque in that process, in that meantime, because we didn't have any family out here to go to for about 6 months. But we ended up coming back when he got his CDL. But I stood out there for a while with her, and she's actually the one that introduced. She's like my little spiritual mama that helped me grow spiritually and helped me through a lot. And I thank her for that, and I thank God for allowing her um, for that. Um, but as time went on, like I said, we had our struggles, and we definitely, definitely had our hard times as growing up. Um, it's so crazy how you look at your past and you're like, I can't believe I made it. Me and my husband, we never did drugs. I'm not gonna say we never tried. I think that we tried, marijuana. Of course, we used to like to drink. I don't drink. He still likes to have a beer now and then. But as for me, I don't. Growing up in that lifestyle, as I grew with God, God started to take those desires away from me, especially because alcohol does run in the family and whatnot. So it was truly a blessing to be able to experience the things that I have experienced. And it's in some areas, there's things that I wish that I would have never experienced. Unfortunately, it's the cards that were laid out in front of me, and it's what God had in store for me, and I'm going to take it and run from it. And hopefully, I've learned from it, and I'm still growing as a person. But it has been one hell of a ride through my life, and as well as my husband's and my family. And so, you know, I don't want to say mental health runs in our family. I think it's just a life that we lived has opened doors to spiritual warfare, and that is, you know, I know there was, some molestation in the family um, that has opened doors to some of the mental breakdowns, and it's sad because, you know, it's like I always hear, oh wow, generational curse, mental health, da 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 da. Maybe so, but where was the root cause of this? It's kind of hard to be something you were never taught, or it's kind of hard to um, not express your feelings in ways that you only know how. Like my mom, she only expressed her feelings in ways she knew how, is cutting and drinking. So unfortunately, I was able to see all of that. So then that opened doors to fears and anxieties in my life. And I found myself drinking a lot to cope with it, and I almost did become an alcoholic, and it would have been another vicious cycle. But I was able to be blessed enough for God to scare me enough to say, "Hey, you're waking up to thinking about beer. It's time to snip it in the butt." So um, it's definitely hard. I mean, for a lot of people out there, they say, well, they judge upon appearance or upon what they can see, but they don't really ever take a step back to see where the root cause. And I say that for everything. I say that for addiction, mental health, murders, child molesters, homosexuality. I say that for anybody. Like, and that's where I pray God, it humbles my heart not to judge anybody, but love them through everything. Because if we can allow God's love shine through us and tell our story, then they will set their eyes and get curious to know who God is, and God will step in and do the rest. If somebody was to come in and tell me, Christella, quit drinking, Christella, what are you doing? And be so judgmental, it's gonna get me angry. You're judging me. Don't do that. You know what I mean? So, but I'm gonna hopefully continue um, talking and posting videos. Yesterday we got out of the house and um, took a ride down Santan Valley because this quarantine is, I don't want to say it's kicking me in my butt, but my lord, I needed to go outside. So we jumped in the car, went for oh my lord, went for a ride, and I made a little video. So I'll probably post that a little bit later. But yeah, so my life is not, you know, and there's so much more to it. And as time goes on, maybe I'll just increments break down stories of experiences I've had, and you guys can get to know me. But through this, I want to share scriptures, and I want to share my stories with you guys. I want to share what has helped me, what hasn't helped me. Definitely want to speak more about the mental health, and definitely going to be speaking about how I battle harm OCD, fear, and anxiety. But before I got into all of that, I wanted to give you guys a little rundown of my life to give you guys some insight of who I am. Again, I think it's very important to share our stories with each other and kind of give us some insight. We all come from different walks, different backgrounds, but the point is it's how can I say that it is more pleasant to talk with somebody that is humble, that knows a little something. Sorry, my computer is bouncing. I know it's because my dogs are on my bed. My precious baby. She's my boo boo. She's I got her when I started to go through harm OCD, fear, and anxiety, and she was like my little road dog. She would go out. We BFFs, BFFs. Definitely, I'll introduce you later to her. But I better let you guys go for now. I'm definitely gonna, hopefully, now that I'm feeling better, keep you guys updated on what's going on and how I'm feeling and more stories. Stay tuned. So if you like, please don't forget to hit subscribe, and have a blessed day and stay tuned. Love ya. Bye.